A member of the State-owned Enterprise Restructuring Unit, Mangalayapa, says reforms must take place in all aspects to attract more foreign investors into the country. Meanwhile, explaining the new listing board set up by the Colombo Stock Exchange for the reformed SOEs, Chairman of the Colombo Stock Exchange, Dilshan Weerasekara, says the board was created in order to facilitate the transitioning process, as the SOEs will not be able to adhere to the existing listing rules while listing themselves onto the Colombo Stock Exchange. Speaking to Indivari Amuwatta during our current affairs program at Hyde Park on Ada Derana 24, officials on the forefront of the restructuring process discussed the way forward for Sri Lanka during the divestment of state-owned enterprises.
Now, we're targeting 1.5 billion US dollars of FDI into the country, but how are we looking at this? Do we have a proper plan, or are we looking at actually the SOEs to lead the way?
If you look back from where we were about a year back and today, things have somewhat moved positively. That's something we all have to realize. 1 year back, I think we would have, if you have something like this was said, the country is still declared as bankrupt, so why would an investor come and buy unless, they just opportunistically trying to invest and buy something dirt cheap. Today, I think the situation is somewhat shifted, not fully out of doom, but better. You asked a very pertinent question. Is it only SOE reforms? No, I think reforms have to take place in broad spectrum of the government. So I think it is a result of all these things kind of working together that will bring in the different situation in Sri Lanka, different environment in Sri Lanka that will enable attract. So it will be a arduous task of promoting investment into Sri Lanka, but we need to address that. We need to understand that is the reality. How do we then address this? Therefore, I think the government is working on many fronts. I think we are on the right direction.
We have done this before, like I said. I mean, a lot of people have forgotten. When you talk about some of these entities, maybe they are profitable, right? But if you relate it to the amount of assets they are sitting on, that profitability is absolutely nothing, because these assets are often not taken at market value. Now, if you take some of the hotels, for example, they are sitting on prime property on which, let's say, if somebody had the capacity to develop that into like a multi-purpose complex, with shopping, entertainment, apartments, that is what we see typically elsewhere in the world, right? I mean, then the return on that asset that you can generate is far more than what you're seeing today. Because, any enterprise, any commercial enterprise needs an investor with the capacity and the commitment to invest, right? And the government obviously is cash strapped, it can't do that.
What really are these new listing rules and the new board really? Is it essential? Couldn't you have facilitated this on the Dirisavi board itself?
No, Indivari, because then what would have happened is we would have to make ad hoc exceptions for certain criteria or listing rules and exemptions of those to the entities, which wouldn't have been sort of good practice in my view, because then you're having a set of rules for some institutes that are listed on a board, but making exceptions to others. Some of the exceptions we've made are on the minimum capital requirements, the track record of profitability, the net asset positions that require. So we've looked at these institutes and we've actually had discussions to figure out what entities they're looking at, maybe trying to privatize initially. And we've loosened the criteria somewhat so that these entities can come up now. For example, even we'll say audited accounts. Now, while private companies can do this, if you look at a state-owned enterprise and the dynamics of that within government, it's going to be very, very hard. I mean, the Auditor General, I don't think, can complete these tasks and have that within the time frames. So that's where we've sort of, I would say, loosened the criteria. And we felt doing it through a separate board is a better option than trying to make on exemptions on a case-by-case basis. Of course, this is a transitional board. How we see it is, we've given a period of sort of 5 years for these SOEs to come on board, get listed, and then start complying to these rules and ultimately migrate. That's the objective. It's not to remain on the SOE board.
Right.